Welcome everyone who is joining us right now. Our conversation today is building trust in B2B healthcare, the go-to-market strategies for success. And for this conversation, I've got three incredible experts with me. We've got Denis, Ken, and Chris. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and they're going to help lead us and unpack this conversation together. Chris, can you go ahead and just give a quick snippet and introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Franckhauser. I have about 20 years of healthcare and technology experience, everything from carrying the bag at medical device companies to going up to the ivory tower at Fortune 15 companies and being at early stage exited SaaS startups.
Across the gamut. I love it. And then Ken, and why don't you jump in and just give a quick intro for yourself as well, your experience.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Ken Dieselman here, VP of Marketing for a small med device company. I've been in the med device space for 20 years, mostly in marketing, also some R&D, and have worked in a variety of different med device roles and companies, specifically in orthopedics and more specifically in the spine world.
Denis, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Denis McDuff. I'm a small business consultant and executive coach. My first company was, I was a partner in a medical practice automation company. Subsequently, I led a SaaS company in emergency medical solutions. And then most recently, I have been advising a startup for over 14 years, who created the first non-toxic, long-lasting, and lifelike tissue preservative as an alternative to formaldehyde, which has been used for over 100 years. And they serve medical device, they serve surgical education and anatomy education markets.
Love it. Well, we've got a great panel here from a variety of healthcare, medical experiences, marketing, and we're just gonna jump in and looking at creating this content. We have to understand. Okay, a great place to begin is how do we demonstrate the value of the product, show the ROI of it, and that's where we're going to begin proving your healthcare products ROI. Chris, I'm going to start with you. What would you say is the most effective first step that a company can take to prove ROI, whether that's using a pilot program, quick wins, or initial case studies? What would you say?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Great question. And I would say that's, frankly, putting the cart before the horse when you think about ROI, right? It all starts at the beginning of understanding your customer, understanding the personas, the decision process, specific attributes of those customers, of those personas. Also, really having a real clear distinction on different stages in the buyer's journey and understanding which content fits at the right time for the right audience. Those things will ultimately, by doing your homework in advance, will give you a kind of a better likelihood that you're going to have a better ROI. So I would say that the first step in being able to measure ROI, have a great ROI, is doing that homework, really understanding your customer, really understanding some of those functional and behavioral attributes of your customer, and then understanding what type of content is best to deliver at whatever point in their buying journey that they're at.
The closer you are to your customer and the pain, understand the pain that they're feeling, the more likely you'll win. So you can understand and aligning that up to that pain, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I would also add that when you think about a small company, and Denis, you could probably speak to this as well. You're clawing and scratching, right? Nobody knows who you are. You're an organization that maybe has a great idea, but that's it, right? There's limitations in the healthcare sector that prevent just ideas making it to market. Whether that's the FDA, whether that's HIPAA compliance with data, whether that's guardrails inside of health systems or providers. So you're clawing and scratching to really get to anything that you can hold on to. Ideally, yes, pilot programs are 100% right. It's more than just a trust us. This is real information in the real world setting, seeing how your product or service can really impact and change a business.
Nice. And you were just referencing Dennis there. Maybe you can, we'll hop over to you, Dennis. What would you say is one metric or KPI that you found effective in being able to show, all right, when it's a new product, where do you zero in on, or how do you identify it? Because obviously it's different for each company, whatever that is. So how do you zero in on it?
I think that's right. And that's a good thing because there's a number of different ways of measuring ROI, I think. For me, I pushed back a little bit on the agenda for ROI because I felt like a video is so affordable that it's almost not even relevant to the conversation. However, I think the main point for me is that ROI with video is measurable. And for me, a number of different things, but what I saw with my most recent client was the metric that I think was very interesting was engagement. In other words, how many doors are opened with video? How does it impact the sales cycle in terms of the quickness with which salespeople can engage clients? Beyond that, it's up to sales, and have the message correct and the sales skills. But medicine is a difficult market. It's a difficult market to break into. It's evidence-based, and particularly if you're a smaller company, you may not even understand, some of the concerns that a healthcare organization has. So to me, potential for faster engagement, shorter sales cycle, potentially tied to that is customer acquisition costs. So it's low cost, it's affordable, it's efficient. And if you can, even as a basic, measure how quickly you can open doors, that's a huge plus for any organization.
I appreciate that you kind of jumped right into, I'm a fan of video, and I'm glad you are as well, but being a medium of content that you're able to just start communicating and opening doors. But it ties back to Chris, that you were probably talking about earlier, though, of like tying that whatever that content is to the buying journey, wherever they are in that cycle, so that you're able to show the story and be able to pull them in. I'm going to jump over to you, Ken, from your experience with NanoHive. I mean, how do you begin the conversation when you're trying to be able to get people's attention? Because Chris spoke to that. It's challenging when you're like, hello, we exist, pay attention to us. How do you frame and begin that conversation with the value that NanoHive is able to bring?
Yeah, I think Chris mentioned up front, really understanding what the expectation will be from an ROI standpoint, and setting up a very good, solid business case. There's a lot of good tools for that up front, and really having reasonable expectations regarding adoption rates and approvals in the hospital. All of that takes quite a bit of time and resources. But along that journey, I think being really laser focused on what that value proposition is, really understanding what your product is specifically differentiated, what area that is, and refining that message. And you can refine that message through multiple, avenues, running the story through sales reps, but also, that design team that you're working with or early consultants that you're working with, and really trying to continuously focus on, what the key features are that's really going to grab somebody's attention. Because when you start talking to a broader sales force, they'll kind of throw everything out there, and they'll go to every surgeon, every customer that they can think of, and oftentimes really dilute the message. And if you're not really talking to the right customer, you're not highlighting that particular differentiating feature, the message is lost. The sales organization gets discouraged. You get a lot more failures than you really need or want early on in the process. So I think really focusing in on a couple key messages and bringing that to the right customer. It's not going to be everybody. You got to tell the sales guys, don't go to these 8 people out of 10, go to 2. These are the 2 guys that you're going to get traction on. And if you highlight these particular features, you'll get people to stop and engage you in a conversation. The other eight guys won't, even though they may be your best friends, or you may have other business with them, or you may have relationships, whatever the case may be. I think sometimes you have to save the sales force from themselves, because they'll push it out in a lot of different areas, and just run into barriers and obstacles, and they'll get discouraged.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to you, Ken, and then Chris and Dennis, if you want to jump in on this. Okay, what is the role of marketing then, combining with sales to help make sure we're going after the right ICP, the right ideal client profile, and not spraying and praying? How have you done it?
You got to write it down, right? You got to. I've done. There's different documents that you can use, but you run it through a variety of different customers, and again, some of these guys will just tell you what you want to hear, so you have to continuously pressure test that with them, and try to narrow it down, and then write it down. And then I've written down scripts, literally a sales script. Now, the sales guys, you don't have to, you can tell them, look, this isn't going to be the way you deliver the message, but when you write the script down, it gives them the guardrails to work within, and it'll constantly try to, pull it back in so that they're not, totally off script.
Chris, your thoughts on the role of marketing and sales working together in being able to launch this product, but focusing on the framework to focus on the right client profile?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that, I always refer to marketing as the brains and sales as the brawn. I think about this is that marketing has to kind of put together what the framework and the playbook look like. And I can't stress that enough, that it is critical that marketing builds credibility up front, because as a commercial organization, marketing and sales are tied one and the same, right? And really understanding who your customers are. And Ken touched on that a little bit. That could be through intent signals. That could be through on really understanding the initiatives for the specific persona. What are their challenges? What are their specific buyer needs? What is the lexicon even, right? What are the words that they use for this specific role, so you can instantly build credibility? I would also look at, what type of individual asset types does this specific persona like to look at or consume? And then how do they like to consume that information? Where do they traditionally go for information, right? So what are their watering holes? And then being able to deliver the content at the right time, at the right stage. And to Ken's point, right, putting guardrails around this is critical, right? Sales is it could be the wild, wild west with a little bit of structure up front from marketing. And being able to, depending on that buying phase, understand what are those knowledge inflection points? What are those kind of narrative elements? What are those preferred interactions, content types? And then what does the organization have to kind of support that at the different phases in the buying journey? I think all that is critical in putting together a framework or a playbook for the execution arm, and the execution arm being sales.
You mentioned intent signals right at the beginning. Is there any ones that the top ones that you've seen recurring or recommend, particularly in the healthcare space, to pay attention to?
Well, I think it depends on what you're going after, right? It depends on what your business is. There's Zoom Info, which is a platform that marketers use and sales use, and it's probably widely used, has intent signals, right? So you can see which organizations are searching for specific criteria, right? So as an example, prior authorization. what organizations are searching for prior authorization, just as an example, right? So they're going to be a little bit further along, right, in their journey. So being able to, going back to Ken's point, hey, these people are probably a little bit further along because we have these intent signals that they're already searching for a product that we have, right? We don't need to do kind of the high level, top of funnel, potential awareness work on the problem. They're already further down where maybe we could simplify our solution or our products and services to that specific organization.
Something you mentioned earlier, Chris, also of the role of marketing is the way I translated my brain was being able to carpet bomb, to be able to warm up the field before the sales comes in, and being able to have that presence. When it comes to, there are many different types of content you can be creating and putting it out. Social proof and being able to show that other people have been using it and that you have value is a good one, is a strong one. How would you say is some successful ways you've have used or have seen used case studies, testimonials, social proof across different campaign types?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll also love to hear Ken and Dennis's responses. But being able to take as a smaller organization, being able to take one small piece of content and repurpose it many different places, right, is so important, right? If you could take a white paper and you could use that for a social post, you could use that for a video, you could use that for an email body copy, use that for a traditional testimonial as a banner on your website, right? There's so many different ways you can repurpose that content. And the reason, frankly, why it's important, Alex, is because everybody, as I mentioned earlier, how people consume information and how they like to interact is very different for different people, right? So if you can have that one little piece of content 6 different ways, you potentially could be attracting 6 different type of buyers, which makes it a heck of a lot more impactful than I'm just going to have a white paper and I'm going to put this on my website or attach it as a PDF in an email document, right?
And you can't assume just because you post on your site that people will find it and use it and whatever. You have to share again and again and again in multiple ways. And ideally, when you're creating content, it can be used for a long period of time. What would you say as far as performance-wise on those different channels? Do you any recommendations? Have you quick tips to anybody like, hey, if you're going to in this space, keep in mind whether it's social, email, or live events, anything that comes to your mind of quick tips that you would recommend?
I think that you try it and then they use the term fail fast, right? Get a little bit of traction, put some gas on the fire. If it doesn't work, pivot. It's kind of the process of small and nimble, agile organizations, right? Let's try something. Let's see if it's resonating with the right audience. And if it's not, let's try a different approach. I would just say fail and if you're going to fail fast.
Yeah.
Because I think you're going to learn a lot the more that you bring products and services and messaging out to market, and being able to be agile and pivot to try to find more of that product market fit is critical.
Of the different types of content you can create, written and video. Dennis, we talked about this before. I'd love for you to kind of jump in on where you see the value of video stories over written, and when it comes to leverage both. You can even say it with social proof, with getting your customers on video. What are your thoughts on that, Dennis?
I think video comes closest to in-person engagement. It has the human element in it. Even business people, even professionals, and I'll use this word loosely, expect to be entertained now or interested. One of the things for my recent client that distinguishes video is that seeing is believing. The alternative, and we were talking about ROI, the alternative to video for this client is in-person demonstrations, which are very costly, time-consuming to set up, and difficult to arrange. And quite frankly, because this is a disruptive product for them, customers didn't believe that it would do what they said it would do. And
when the results are so incredible, it's like, I don't believe it. Show me.
That's right. And so video allows them to do that. And it allows the communication to become peer-to-peer as opposed to company to customer. And that's really important in healthcare. It's more impactful if it comes from their peer. And we know that because marketing did the research and they told us it shouldn't come from you, it should come from us. And beyond that, a video can micro-target the audience. So, an orthopedic surgeon doesn't necessarily care what a plastic surgeon has to say to him. But if it comes from another orthopedic surgeon, that's more impactful. So being able to have proof that the product works as advertised is huge.
You lay up the point of potentially crafting a library then based on different ICPs that you have, different client profiles, one that fits that specific one, and their use case and their type is so important. Ken?
That's exactly right. And I would say you can have the same product, the same video, serving different markets depending on how you edit that, which is really important.
Magic of editing, multiple ways to repurpose and reuse, as Chris, you were referencing earlier, of be able to cycle and leverage across your channels. Ken, I want to come over to you because you guys have captured in two different ways your customers. Can you speak to the kind of more immediate and then also after a longer period of time and the different ways you're leveraging that?
Yeah, the first videos that we recorded and used were pretty much just like usage testimonials. Product worked great. What a particular customer, what appeals to that particular customer from a technology handling, whatever that short-term appeal would be. But more recently, we've completed we're working on several now that the phrase I use, which is fairly common in the medical device world, is grand rounds. The grand rounds is a very common presentation format, peer-to-peer, as Denis mentioned, and it's a clinical experience that a visiting surgeon would have, or it's that peer-to-peer experience that gets presented usually face-to-face, and this would be an electronic or a sort of virtual peer-to-peer. The challenge is gathering the data up front, right? That's always takes more time and effort and resources than anybody really wants to admit it. That's always difficult. But the better that data is, and if you're doing a real study, a real prospective, randomized or multi-centered, that type of presentation of data, I think, is very compelling. Nice summary. It sort of simulates what's done routinely in the medical world with clinical data that's presented in various forums.
Getting that data is a challenge, as you said. Is there any lessons learned there that you can share of how can you, I don't know, streamline is the right word, but at least make it know what you're getting into when it comes to getting this data from your customers and building that case?
Yeah, I lost a little bit of connectivity.
Yeah, I'll lay
there.
that question up for you again, Ken. Yeah, it's basically any lessons learned when you're trying to get that data from your customer that you can ship.
Yeah, I think just having conversations with people early on in the process where, people's intentions may always be very optimistic, right? But understanding, laying expectations out early on in the relationship that if this is something that they're interested in doing, you could show them what we've done in the past. They can look at it. They can, sort of feel like that's something that they can do. It's well within their area of expertise. They have resources. It's much easier to do if you've been having the ongoing conversations with people versus just sort of, after you've been working with somebody for a while, then you throw an idea out at them. And, by then most people are maybe unable to, sort of retrospectively go back and pull things together. So setting that expectation up front is helpful.
Going in with the mindset of get it ask for it earlier. Ask them to start already categorizing. Okay, where have you been, and start tracking the data. Don't wait to the end
Yeah,
after
yeah.
everything's done. All right, moving into then. Okay, creating this content, and whether it's social proof or other types of content, and making sure it's compliant, because that's a whole other fun challenge in the healthcare medical space, ensuring compliance. What are your thoughts, Chris, on what are a quick win that healthcare teams can do to implement content creation that is compliant? How do you keep that mindset? Any tips there?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, healthcare, just the nature of healthcare, kind of handcuffs the freedom of what marketers can and cannot say, because frankly, it's on paper, it's in print, it is on video, right? There's not a lot of gray area when it comes to compliance, right? There's
Yeah.
none.
Ken,
You
you
know,
were telling earlier, it's like you can't have a doctor say, "I love it. It's the best product in the entire world. It's amazing." It's like that's just not going to happen.
right. So, I mean, because you're dealing with obviously HIPAA, you're dealing with the FDA, right? You're dealing with the GDPR over in the EU, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of challenges with being creative in this space. And you have to tread very, very lightly, because the last thing you want is to be infringing on any of those. I think that's really where the challenge comes for marketers, right? This is where creativity really has to shine through, in a somewhat um, limiting in a limiting space, that you can really be free to say what you want, right? And make bold claims, right? There's a lot of asterisks and disclaimers and kind of all of those things that factor into what you say and what you do. But yeah, quick wins. I just want to go back to the social proof piece, right? There's so much value in having a person, there's so much intrinsic value for a business to have a person put their name out there, put their face out there, kind of build credibility for your business. I mean, Dennis touched on it, Ken touched on it. I 100% agree, right? People want to buy from organizations that they trust, and they also want to, frankly, not really ever be a guinea pig, right? So, if you can have somebody in an organization, whether it's a peer or whether it's a like-minded organization, to not be the first, that's so powerful. That's so powerful, and that is, I mean, that's essentially, that's what you want. That's what you want, to build that network, whether it's through KOLs, whether it's through the peer-to-peer programs, whether it's through testimonials. Like, let those things do the talking, because again, there is so much rigidity around what you can and cannot say in this space, and making bold claims. Usually you'll be called out relatively quick, and people say, well, prove it. And then you're like, well, right. So you'll be backtracking a lot. So, I think social proof trumps darn near every different type of messaging that a healthcare marketer, because they're hearing it from their peers that are already in the trenches.
I love the clarity of just let them speak, and do the marketing for you. Ken, you have your real world experience though of ensuring both of the content you're creating stays engaging but compliant. Any strategies or tactics that you found work well to ensure that you're able to create this content, and the workflow that you go through to ensure it's compliant?
So regardless of the marketing collateral you're developing, as the marketing person, it's your job to know really clearly what's off label and what's on label. It's not someone else's job, it's your job. So make sure that, as the marketing person, you know that. And then in a number of cases, we've had good success. I've seen good success. And by engaging the person with the final say in that, which is typically a regulatory person in the organization who has sign off. But at various times we've had, instead of pushing something that's complete or nearly complete that you think is on label and you push that at the regulatory person, they can certainly contribute ahead by just sitting down with them and scoping it out. So sit down with legal, sit down with regulatory early on and come up with things. And I've had people kind of push the limits further than I would have thought, by being creative in how something is phrased. That's all. Says, well, we can't say it like that, but we can say it like X, Y, Z. And, maybe that's something I hadn't thought of. So just, if it's something that's not black and white, sit down with the other decision makers in the organization up front.
That's good. Get creative with the regulatory lead
just
in your company.
Get consensus ahead of time. Like any big decision that, is ongoing in the organization, just get everybody's buy-in.
Getting them involved in sooner. I think that's a great point. Dennis, I'm going to come over to you. When it comes to just creating content that also you're leveraging in marketing, but also sales, like across the organization, so that everyone is seeing it. I don't know if you can speak to anything where the companies you've coached where you're ensuring that it's being used to generate the pipeline. It doesn't just sit in the back. Anything that you've coached companies on of ensuring it's for everyone's using it?
So in my experience, salespeople are eager to have these materials. It's not having to, carefully monitor what they're doing. They want to use it. And speaking to a VP of sales recently, I asked him about the open rates. He was very aware of them, and they were unbelievably high. And also you can measure the forwards. So I think these materials are something that people are eager and hungry for.
If anything, it's keeping up with the demand, that you can supply the content so that...
Well, the other thing that I've been thinking about recently, which I think is interesting, video offers an opportunity to be a cross-generational tool. So where some people now don't want to answer phone calls or listen to voicemails, or particularly like emails, and the younger generations versus the older generations, video is of interest to all of them. The other thing is that I'm very keen on is empowering customers to be brand ambassadors for you. And video does that. When a client is forwarding a video to his peer, he's acting in a sales capacity for you. So, why not? They told us that the message is best coming from them, from their peers. So why not empower them to do that? And so I think video does that.
Love it. Well, I want to end on one last question here for anyone who's up for answering. Attribution. How do you track the success when you're creating all this content, that how it's actually attributing to growth, to pipeline, to the overall success of the business? Anybody want to take that question of how do you track the success of any of the assets you're creating? Chris, I know you want to answer this.
Okay, I'll start, but would love to hear Dennis and Ken. Right, so marketing attribution is a point of contention that I've seen in organizations. Right, a lot of times marketing has a number they need to hit. Right, they need to build the pipeline by X. Marketing attribution can be very, very easy to measure up to a point. Right, it could be based on dollars generated in the pipeline, information that's delivered. Have they moved a specific sales stage in the funnel because of XYZ collateral? But then there's also the gray area, right? Gray area within whether it's, there's additional phone calls, or whether things are being tracked in the CRM properly, right? Is there information that shows that this collateral was used for this client? Did this help them? You know, there's so many different ways to get attribution, whether it's impressions, whether it's through, as Dennis mentioned earlier, through you know, email open rates, impressions through LinkedIn or other social channels. You know, it's based on touch points, right? That's what marketing can control. We can control the touch points. And then it's kind of what is the impact of those touch points have further down the funnel when it comes to sales, So a lot of gray area, a lot of points of contention, because, you know, marketing is trying to hold on for, you know, to show their value and make sure that they can get attribution, because they play a critical role. They play a critical role up front for those organizations. But would love to hear, Dennis, Ken, your thoughts as well.
Yeah. Ken, you want to jump in and
You know, yeah, one other thing, I agree, Chris, with everything you said. But one thing I've done in the past is just periodically, like annually, do a survey with the sales organization, and you know, you can ask lots of questions about support, sales support, and just one of them can be, you know, did you find the use of this or that, or, you know, these pieces that we've developed, or how it's been delivered, where it's available. I found that to be, like any survey, you sort of anticipate answers and then you get a bunch of answers that you didn't anticipate. It's always interesting. So that's just one other thing that I've seen been helpful.
Yeah. Tracking the use of it, sales and marketing working together is what's going to generate the pipeline. Because I feel like, Ken, we were talking about earlier, for you, it's marketing is, for you, very much aligned with the sales generated. You're not focused necessarily on MQLs and we generate a lead here, but it's how we actually generated pipeline. So I think marketing should definitely be focused on the end goal, the end game. You'd agree with that?
Sure, absolutely.
There's, I'm really on the time here. I want to wrap up, but this has been a powerful conversation, I think, on some ensuring you're tracking the right stuff, getting the right content across the customer journey. I appreciate, Chris, you looking at the bigger playing field, but then where is social proof being leveraged? Thank you, gentlemen, for all of you being on this call and sharing your wisdom, expertise. Chris, where can folks find out more, and is a good place to reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks, Alex, for having me. Great places to connect with me, please, on LinkedIn. If you want to schedule some time, please book an appointment. There's a link to my Calendly there. Would love to connect for a 15-minute meet and greet and learn a little bit more about the folks that are on this call.
Dennis, where can folks learn more about you?
LinkedIn or McDuffconsulting.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Dennis, for being on. And Ken, I don't know if people, you're open for peers to connect with you, but
anytime. So anytime on LinkedIn. I'm definitely, you know, we're active on LinkedIn. We do a lot. The company does, but for those of us who've been around for a while, there's a lot of connections there. So it's always good to make new ones and connect other people.
Well, thank you again for sharing your wisdom, and we'll see you all next time.